and I do it 1,000 times again. And I rise up, I like the waves, I rise up, in spite of the ache, I rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again.
Good evening and welcome to the September 2021 edition of OUTBEAT News in Depth. I'm Greg Moralia. Tonight we take an in-depth look at a controversy over the rainbow flag that's been brewing in the Castro neighborhood of San Francisco. A group of young gay activists are pushing to replace the original 6-color rainbow flag with a progress flag. Now, you've likely seen this flag flying in past Pride seasons. This is the flag that includes the black and brown stripe to represent marginalized LGBTQ plus communities of color, along with the colors of pink, light blue, and white, which are used in the transgender flag. Now, these activists claim that the original flag created by Gilbert Baker back in 1978 has become outdated, but the Gilbert Baker Foundation sees it differently. The huge flagpole at the corner of Castro and Market flying Gilbert Baker's rainbow pride flag rises from a monument dedicated to the flag's creator. It's more than just a flag. It's a history. It's an art installation, and it's a landmark. Tonight we talk with Charley Beal. He was a close friend of Gilbert Baker and is currently the president of the Gilbert Baker Foundation. So stay with us. It's all coming up next right after your OUTBEAT Radio News for this Sunday, September 26th, 2021. On June 25, 1978, a young artist and hippie from San Francisco named Gilbert Baker raised for the first time a 30-foot by 60-foot huge hand-dyed rainbow flag. And almost instantly, the rainbow pride flag became recognized as a symbol for the LGBTQ plus community. Now, since that time, the flag has become a symbol of power around the world. Dozens of other flags representing bisexuals, transgender people, bears, and many other parts of our community have been created. But Gilbert Baker's original rainbow flag will always be the flag that represents all of us. Gilbert passed away on March 31st of 2017, and his good friend Charley Beal now oversees the Gilbert Baker Foundation and his legacy. He finished a memoir that Gilbert started titled Rainbow Warrior, My Life in Color, and he's here to tell us about the book and more about Gilbert Baker. Charley, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great to have you here and to talk about this incredible piece of history and to educate our listeners around it. But before we get talking about Gilbert Baker and the flag, tell us a little about your background and how you met Gilbert.
Thanks, Greg. My name is Charley Beal. Like I said, I'm actually a feature film and television art director. I was somebody who studied art history in school. I was a gay kid. I was in the community theater. And I got interested in set design very early. I ended up in New York. I ended up working for a designer who did both film and television. And, that's the early 80s. And then it was off to the races. I was blessed to work with really, people like Mike Nichols and Ridley Scott and, just wonderful directors, producers, and actors on some really great projects. So my career has been blessed, and right in the middle of it, I was at my brother's house in New York. I have an older brother who lives there. He's an old hippie. And some of his hippie friends from San Francisco would come to visit from time to time, Greg, and who showed up but Gilbert Baker, creator of the rainbow flag, and had these sketches for this mile-long flag going all the way up Fifth Avenue. And I was so impressed, and we just hit it off. And I said, I want to work on that. It's a funny thing because he loved my background. I saw his sketches and I said, Gilbert, that's what you've drawn is an aerial shot of Fifth Avenue with the flag. And he says, really? I said, you need a helicopter on the day of this event. And to be honest, I did. I put him in touch with my friend Al Cirillo at National Helicopter. And on the day of the event, there's a photographer up in a helicopter, normally doing movies, shooting that mile-long flag, and the rest is history. We became best of friends. He would stay at my place frequently when he was in between New York and San Francisco, and eventually I went to Rome with him for World Pride 2000. I went all around the country with him at Pride events. spent a lot of time in LA and San Francisco with him, and eventually was lucky enough to go with him to the White House to present a rainbow flag, an
Oh,
original
wow.
hand-dyed, hand-sewn 8-color rainbow flag to President Barack Obama. So
Amazing.
he was a fabulous guy. He was a crazy drag queen who always brought just joy and love. One thing people, don't understand much about maybe that era, it was the end of the hippie era. And boy, he was knee deep in peace and love and justice. And he was till his last days. He really was. He ended every phone call with, "I love you, Charlie." Every phone call. That's how he ended it. So he was that kind of person.
Well, he, in his life, started a memoir. I've got it right here, called The Rainbow Warrior, My Life in Color, and you had the opportunity to finish it. So you learned a lot about your good friend. Where did he come from, and how did he get involved in the community in San Francisco?
Well, it's in the early chapters of the book. He grew up in Kansas. His father had come out of World War II. He went on the GI Bill, studying to be a lawyer. He eventually became a judge. And they settled in a town called Parsons, Kansas. And he was there right through high school. And he was interested in art. He once got caught dressing up in his aunt's ball gown. He got scolded for that. And he kind of stuck out as being an effeminate, creative, artistic young man in a very conservative part of our country. And I think to get out, it was the time of the Vietnam War, and although he was anti-war at heart, he just thought it's better than Parsons, and he enlisted in the Army. Within weeks, realized it was a huge mistake. He was so bullied, and he really thought he was going to be killed. I mean, he was the things he describes in his book are shocking. He was treated horribly, and so he thought he would try to be a conscientious objector. His family freaked out, but some kind officer, took pity on him, I guess, and said, "Why don't you become a medic? Because medics don't have to carry guns." And he's like, "Okay." And, and they sent him to medic school. And where did they post him? But San Francisco, California in 1971. I mean, he landed right in the whole, that just after the Summer of Love. And that whole, growing, women's movement, the gay rights movement, the peace movement. And he became involved in all of them very quickly. I think, he finished his tour of duty. He got honorably discharged working at the Presidio in the Army. And before long, the hair was down to his shoulders and he's wearing tie-dye and, all sorts of crazy hippie clothes. And he starts designing hippie clothes and he starts studying sewing at the local community college. And that led him to making gowns for drag queens, but it also led him to making banners for political marches. Mm-hmm. And he was politicized, believe it or not, in the early feminist movement, the women's rights movement. Those were the first demonstrations he went to, Right. And so that led him, though, to working with the gay movement there. And the rest is history,
Well, the community college you talked about for our local listeners was City College of San Francisco. He studied there.
That's correct. Right? And do you know the professor that taught him sewing is still alive? I just got his number from a friend. I'm going to reach out to him and see if he remembers. I'm sure he does, because apparently Gilbert caused quite a stir in his class because he would always show up dressed like Mick Jagger or David Bowie. And all they wanted him to do was to make a gray flannel suit. And he's like, he wasn't interested in that, let me tell you.
Incredible. So I guess it's fair to say that we owe the creation of the rainbow flag to the United States Army.
Yeah, in a funny way, because it did lead him there. Now, Gilbert had dreamed of moving to New York. He wanted to be the next Halston, the next, Yves Saint Laurent. That was his dream initially. But he did end up in San Francisco because of the Army. And I think because of that, San Francisco's unusual. I always call it, it's like a lightweight boxer that boxes above its weight, meaning the LGBTQ movement wasn't that big at the time that, you could kind of know everybody. You just go down to the center and pretty soon he's on the decorations committee for the 77 parade, which is a year before they made the rainbow flag. And he got to know Harvey Milk, and Harvey Milk, the legendary politician there who was, martyred about a year later, was one of the people that urged Gilbert as an artist and somebody who sewed. He urged Gilbert to come up with a new symbol for gay rights. Up until then, they were trying hard to rebrand the pink triangle, but it was a downer. It was put on us by the Nazis. And some people tried to use the lambda, but it was very obscure. But this conversation was going on, not just between Harvey and Gilbert, but really across the country. But, Gilbert's the person that really, I think, thought long and hard about it. And he was out one night at the movies and just noticed those big flagpoles at United Nations Plaza in San Francisco with the big American flags. And he decided, that's it. That's the symbol we need. We need a flag. And a lot of people don't give him that credit, because with all these myriad flags out nowadays, it all started because he said that symbol should not be a triangle or a lambda. It should be a flag.
It should be a flag.
And soon after that, he was out dancing and he was just marveling at the diversity of the whole crowd, young, old, black, white, Latino, women, men, gay, straight. And he thought it was, the rainbow of humanity. And that's it. That's the idea came to him. It was an epiphany. And he writes about it very passionately in his book, that he knew now that the drag queens that had fought back at Stonewall would now have their own flag. That's how he put it. So he got busy and assembled a lot of volunteers. He convinced the Pride Foundation, which was in charge of the parade in San Francisco then, to give them $1,000. They bought yards and yards of beautiful natural cotton. He had a good friend, Lynn Segerblom, AKA Fairy Argyle was her name then, known as the Rainbow Fairy, by the way. And she was a master dyer. So he really leaned on her a lot. Mm-hmm. He learned a lot from her. His friend, James McNamara, who had studied sewing at the FIT in New York, the Fashion Institute of Technology, was, great with the sewing machine like Gilbert. So they got busy. 30 volunteers came and went, big vats of dyed fabric, leaking all over the place and running down the side of the building. They were up on the roof trying to get this stuff to work. And eventually they took it all to a laundromat in the middle of the night and rinsed it out and went back, ironed it up, sewed it together, and made two beautiful 30-foot high by 60-foot wide, magnificent, huge flags. And they took them out 3 days before the parade for a test flight. And it was a good thing they did, because the winds of San Francisco, as you know, are pretty fierce at times. And their friend Walter Kaplan was a lawyer. He had a cafe right there. That building is still there by United Nations Plaza. And he knew people in city government. He got the keys to the flagpole, and they raised him up, and the wind hit them really hard, and pop, 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 all the grommets started popping out and the flags started ripping. So they pulled him down. And at the time, Gilbert was living in a building called the Clown Hotel. He was making outfits for the clowns. He had a sewing studio there, as well as the big studio they put up in the community center. And he knew this business down the street called Paramount Flag Company. So they bundled up their ripped flags and take him to Paramount Flag Company. And Paramount Flag did a little rescue mission. They sewed a piece of rope into the heading, as opposed to the normal kind of jute webbing a flag would have. And they stitched it and reinforced it, and they put their Paramount grommets in it. And those are the flags that went up on the morning of June 25th. 1978.
1978.
And as Gilbert likes to say, as soon as it left his arms, he said he knew, just like that. He knew what his life was going to be. He knew because people got it instantly. They instantly said, we have a flag, and that's it. And, he loved the rainbow. He said, it belongs in the sky. It's of the sky. And he loved the infinite spectrum that it represented. And this is something they talked about, Greg, at the time. And he talks about it in his book. They had discussions about, is it an L stripe and a G stripe and a B stripe and a T stripe? And they decided to assign to the colors, instead of identities, they assign them elements that are in us all, like sex and love and sunlight and healing and magic and on. And for that way that it would always be relevant. It would be there, it would grow with our community, because these are elements that are in all of us, as opposed to, a flag that really is kind of stuck in one identity.
And I love that. And I think that's the piece of history that a lot of folks have forgotten. You mentioned that everybody got it in 78 because it was new and Gilbert was there and there was an understanding about what it meant. But, I'm always amazed with my own students about how many of them have no idea about what the real meaning of those individual colors are. It has nothing to do with whether you're white or whether you're brown or whether you're black, whether you're female, male. It has to do with elements that are part of all of us. And I love that description of it. It transcends everyone.
Yeah, there's a great interview that a local reporter did, Leanne Menendez. I think it was in 2017 in February, right before he died. You can see it online on the NBC local affiliate. And I mean, he basically said, we were hippies. These are, they believed in love and peace and magic and the spirit and serenity. And that's why they chose those things. They really, there was a purity to their optimism then. I think people are pretty cynical nowadays. And even Gilbert, I mean, a couple years after they created the flag, Ronald Reagan was president, you know what I mean? And we went through kind of 40 years of a pretty dark journey before, people kind of woke up again recently and started realizing that these principles that people believed in then are important, and that it's important to love people and to believe in peace and to be optimistic and to be hopeful. And that's what his flag was for. It was to give people hope. Harvey Milk's message was give people hope. He talked about the kid in Altoona or that kid in a wheelchair in Minneapolis who wanted to come out of the closet.
Right. All
he needed was hope. And Gilbert thought, if they see this flag somewhere and they know that it's for queer people, that'll give them hope. They'll go, wow, there's a visible flag downtown in my hometown on a cafe. That means there's more people like me out there, and they're not afraid. They're not afraid to be out of the closet.
Right.
Because, people ask me, who's the flag for? Is it for trans people, or is it for gays, old gay white men like me? And I say, no, it's for sexual and gender minorities. It's for anybody else out there that's born into a closet, needs to come out. And that's why the flag's there. It's to help people take that first step out of the darkness of the closet into a life of light and love and liberation. And if seeing it on TV, or like I say, or seeing it in a parade or in a march, if that gives somebody enough confidence to help come out of the closet, then Gilbert's mission is accomplished. And it's accomplished each time it happens. And it's still happening all over the world.
Right. And it can be on the front window of a store.
Correct.
In some town that you're visiting where you're unsure about where you are and what the environment's like, and you can see that and it's identifiable. The original flag had 8 colors in it. So it's even had an evolution. It was a pretty early evolution into its popularity. Talk about how it went from 8 to 6.
Well, Greg, I'm glad you asked that. I remember that Paramount flag I told you about, that company down the street from the Clown Hotel. Mm-hmm. Wow. Gilbert knew right away that he and his hippie friends could not make enough flags to meet the overwhelming demand that happened after that first parade. So he went to Paramount Flag, and he got a job there. And one thing that came up was in 1979, just a year later, he wanted to make 400 rainbow banners to go on what's called the Path of Gold. It's all those antique light posts that run up and down Market Street. And he knew that if he could put these banners up, that people would know, hey, our flag's back. That's it. It would kind of cement that image in people's minds, so it wasn't just kind of one and done. So Paramount Flag, the people there, the president of Paramount Flag had to take him into the office and say, that's really great, Gilbert, but we ran out of pink fabric and turquoise fabric a long time ago. And the official palette for flag companies all over the world was about 24 colors. So he had to make a decision, bit of a Sophie's choice. How do you give up sex and magic, as he likes to say? But, he knew that he had to make that choice and go with the 6 available colors, or it wouldn't grow. If it had to be handmade and hand dyed for every flag, it would never have grown as quickly and as far afield as it needed to keep up with our growing movement. This is 78, 79. AIDS came in 1980, 81. People needed this symbol of hope, and we needed the flag industry to do it. So Gilbert spent 10 years working in the flag industry, and he likes to say that the red, the sex and love are in the red now, and that instead of the turquoise, that magic and spirit are in the blue. So they're still there. They're just in different colors, but the meaning is there, and that's what counts. So it was a compromise, but it was a compromise that meant that symbol would spread, and by 1985 would be adopted by the Interpride organization of pride organizations from around the country. They came together, I believe, in Fort Lauderdale that year and adopted the rainbow flag. New York City adopted it in 1986. And Heritage of Pride adopted it that year, and it just grew and grew. There was a gay Olympics in San Francisco in the early 80s, and Gilbert was hired to decorate the stage, and of course he did it all with rainbow flags. And it was that kind of relentless work. He worked in the flag industry, I think I said 10 years, and he worked doing other things. He decorated City Hall for then Mayor Dianne Feinstein for the visit by the Premier of China or the King of Spain. He would do crazy big, beautiful decorations, all, with Paramount Flag. And then he got the commission to decorate the 1984 Democratic Convention at Moscone Center, which he, it's funny. By then, Gilbert was also a Sister of Perpetual Indulgence, the gay nuns, who do a lot of street theater, but they also did a lot of fundraising for AIDS and other social causes. So he got his gay nuns to come in and help decorate the Moscone Center. I don't know if their Democratic Party was quite ready for that, but he was a many-faceted person, and he wasn't one to hide his light under a bushel. If he wanted to sew in a dress, he would sew in a dress. And if he wanted to dress as a nun to go to a meeting, he would do it. And, he really was one of our first genderqueer people in the sense that, he would wear makeup and have a beard at the same time and long hair with a cheerleader skirt and go-go boots with pom-poms and a tube top, all, kind of male, female, all mixed together. And he was that way his whole life.
I think that's one of the really interesting things I found throughout his book, as he talks about that aspect of his persona and who he identified as. And there wasn't the same language then that there is now.
No, people, they used to say transsexual, which, of course, technically is an impossible term. You can't change your sex, and you can't change the sex of who you're attracted to.
Right.
You can change your gender. or express your gender differently. And although Gilbert never went as far as taking hormones and having surgeries, he definitely was into gender expression by wearing makeup or dressing in feminine clothes. One day, the next day, he'd wear a colorful suit. So he was that free and liberated, and I loved him for it.
Awesome. I think anybody who's gone to the Castro has seen that gigantic flagpole and the big rainbow flag that's there. And if you actually walk up to it, you'll see a nice plaque and some information about Gilbert. And he was instrumental in getting that flag put there. And it's a significant spot. Tell us a bit about that. When did that happen and how did it come about?
Well, that flagpole is the second most photographed landmark in San Francisco. So it's a major piece of art. Gilbert had dreamed of having a flagpole there for years, back in the early 90s. And at the 1997 Castro Street Fair, he was with his friend Jeff Sheehy, Supervisor Sheehy, who at the time was the president of the Harvey Milk Democratic Club.
Mm-hmm.
And who should show up there but Mayor Willie Brown, Magic Mayor, as they used to call him. And Gilbert went after him like a bee on honey, and we went right up to him and just immediately started pitching his idea, this dream he had of a giant rainbow flag that would be there 24/7 every day of the year. It's this great symbol of hope, always visible. And after about pitching him for about 5 minutes, Willie Brown looked at one of his aides and said, "Let's make it happen." And Greg, within 6 weeks, by the 20th anniversary of Harvey Milk's historic election on November 7th, 1997, that flagpole was up and that flagpole was raised for the first time. And it has flown there ever since. They've been a couple, without pretty much constantly since then. And it's important, because it was something he designed. He placed it on the center line of Market Street so that you could see it all the way down to the ferry building at the Embarcadero. He figured it had to be 70 feet high so you could see it from certain vantage points all over San Francisco. He did wind shear studies so that the footing, he knew how deep the footing had to be in the concrete. He knew about shimming a flagpole in that concrete. He knew all this stuff. He did drawings. And so, when he finally got to Willie Brown, he had it all figured out. So this is not a community flagpole, really. It was paid for and installed by the Department of Public Works, but it was an art installation designed by Gilbert Baker.
Yeah.
His art hangs in the Museum of Modern Art and the London Design Museum. It's been in the Vuitton Museum in Paris. It's in the Kansas History Museum, the Tang Museum. I could go on and on. Gilbert was more than anything an artist. And I know it's sometimes hard for people to wrap their heads around the idea that a flagpole with a flag is a work of art, but that's what that is. And it's his only remaining art installation on this planet. And we are trying very hard to preserve it. Yeah. Because some people, they think it's a community flagpole. Let's put up this flag or that flag. And, we see it differently. We see it as a work of art by a great artist and a great activist who gave his life, heart and soul to this community, to liberating, millions of people around this globe.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think just as the neighborhood looks at the importance of, let's say, the Pink Triangle Park and remembering what happened in the Holocaust so many decades and years ago, you would never think about, or should never think about, replacing that because there's something new that's come along. That's a piece of history. And we need to preserve that history so that young people and old who don't know the history can learn it. And I think the same thing is true with that giant rainbow flag.
Yeah, Greg,
there's unmistakable history there.
That's right, Greg. And, my good friend, Dustin Lance Black, he's the Academy Award screenwriter, wrote the movie Milk, which, by the way, I was very proud to be the art director on that movie, and got to know a lot of San Francisco. And I really got to know the neighborhood and the history of it so much while making that movie. But Lance, has joined our cause to try to landmark that. And, he told me, he said, this kind of quote, I'm quoting him, he said that, even as our symbols evolve, we can still preserve our history. And
Exactly.
that it's important that we honor the activists of, all races, all genders, all ages who have fought for the freedoms we enjoy today. They have fought under that rainbow flag. And that even as we celebrate new symbols, and this foundation has probably done more than anybody, especially in San Francisco, to celebrate these symbols. We produced an exhibit, we produced our Emojis of Pride campaign, and we believe that these beautiful new community flags must be flown there. There's room in the sky for all of them, Greg, but you can fly those flags and still honor your history at the same time.
Right.
So I agree. Patrick Carney is another great supporter of landmarking the flag at Harvey Milk Plaza. He's the creator of the Pink Triangle Project, and he was also the second recipient of the annual Gilbert Baker Award.
Oh, that's awesome.
And, so people in the arts, they get it. Deborah Walker's on the Arts Commission. She supports the landmarking. Ron Sundergill, who is the head of the whole regional National Parks Conservancy, they're trying to landmark the Harvey Milk's camera shop. And he is a great backer of supporting this, along with, the legendary photographer, Danny Nicoletta, who just was posting on Facebook saying, you've got to landmark this flag. We have a lot of supporters, and we're just hoping that people who think maybe sometimes another flag should fly on that flagpole would reconsider and really embrace the idea of getting new flagpoles. And Greg, I'll say this, it took Gilbert years to get that flagpole. He worked tirelessly to do it. And I'm just saying that so people who want to fly other flags, you should know it's going to be hard work.
Right.
It would be one thing to take somebody else's flagpole and put your flag up on it. But, you're doing that to somebody who is an artist and created that flagpole and worked tirelessly and designed every element of that. And his name is at the bottom, like the signature on a painting.
Right.
So I really support it. Our foundation has made a commitment to help and even fund putting up more flagpoles. It's a matter of finding room in the sky for all of them, not having one replace the other.
And I think the big difference is all the other amazing flags that are out there are identity group specific, where the rainbow flag transcends them all. So it's sort of, I view it as sort of the mothership, the mother flag for us all.
Yeah. Monica Helms, who created the trans flag, is a very good friend. She's actually on the board of the Gilbert Baker Foundation. We had a meeting 2 days ago, and she went on about this. She said, you have to listen that these other flags are all like the state flag, and Gilbert's flag is like the American flag. And
that's a great analogy.
Monica's a veteran. She was in the military for 10 years. She was key in getting, the rights of trans people in the military. She's a great advocate for trans people, but I tell you, she adores Gilbert and loves his flag. And she sees it the same way. It's the mother of them all and the rest of their children. And that's how we feel. I mean, I don't want to patronize or anything, but I love all these flags. And we actually feel protective of the designers who've designed them, because some of them have taken a lot of, controversy. My friend Amber Hikes created the More Colors flag in Philly in 2017, and that has the black and the brown stripe. Right. And she made that out of protest that for two reasons. The local pride organizations just were not sensitive to or open to the needs of people of color. They weren't. They really were serving part of the community, not all the community. And the other problem was that some young Black kids got kicked out of a gay bar there. And so she designed this other flag, and it's a beautiful flag. It's really is there as to start a conversation about the intersection between race and sexuality and gender.
Right.
That it's different for somebody who is, to be Black and gay than it is to be white and gay. It is different, just it is different between Black and white in our whole society. And so it's a beautiful design, but, she received death threats within a week, and it's terrible that there really is racism and transphobia within our community. It needs to be addressed. Dan Quasar's progress flag is he created it, I'll quote Dan, to force a conversation about racism and transphobia in our community, meaning the LGBTQ plus queer community. And it's a good design for that, but that's what it is. But what it is it is essentially a protest flag that it elevates certain identities to make us discuss them.
Right.
On the other hand, people who see the progress flag, they love it. They get excited about it. I get it. It's a wonderful flag, but because of how it's designed and how Dan intended, I don't think it really serves as a replacement, because here come, I'm working on a bisexual visibility project, the foundation right now, and one of the people says they see the progress flag and they feel like it's a kick in the gut because it excludes the colors of the bisexual flag that Michael Page designed. Well, now you're in a little bit of a pickle because, as soon as you attach identity or emphasize one over the other, you've excluded somebody, whether you like it or not. And Greg, by my last count, I think you'd need a flag with about 41 or 42 stripes on it if you wanted to include every little microscopic part of our community. And it's great. Monica's flag, it's great. The trans flag is beautiful. It's been around the world. It's been on the North Pole. You know what I mean? It's there to have for trans people to celebrate their pride and for people to celebrate trans pride and support them. But like she said, it's like a state flag that is under the umbrella of the national flag, or as Gilbert used to call it, the rainbow flag was a global tribal flag. And I think his genius was not assigning identities to stripes and colors, but elements that are within all people.
Right. And everybody can embrace it. And he didn't make a penny on this, right? This was a flag that belongs to everybody as well. He didn't copyright it. He didn't trademark it. I mean, there's rainbow everything. I saw a box of rainbow colored Oreos, this Pride season. And I just had to think, I wonder what Gilbert would think about that.
Well, that's funny because I'm in Provincetown right now. And I remember in the 90s walking down the street with him, and he was just rolling his eyes at the rainbow coffee cups and keychains, and everybody's using it. People use it to market, and they use it to sell. They want gay dollars. And sometimes they use it in a cynical way. Budweiser always does their rainbow bottles every year, but we caught them this year donating money to politicians who are trying to pass anti-trans laws. So I joined Stacy Lentz, who's the owner of the Stonewall Inn, and we protested and we dumped Budweiser into the gutter right in front of all the cameras and the press. So, he did roll his eyes at it, but, he did give it to the world freely. He knew that it needed to be disseminated across this planet. And if somebody was going to try to control who could use it or who couldn't, somebody had to pay, he thought that would not really work. And it's funny because the more history of the rainbow flag I've learned, Greg, the more I learned I don't know. And one of the things that I learned this year came out of the blue was our lawyer for the foundation was sending me some articles. And she found this article about the lawyer who gave the rainbow flag to the world, it was said. And it turned out there's this lawyer, his name escapes me right now, it'll come to me, but it was a young lawyer in San Francisco. And Gilbert had made the first flags. Well, those flags, as I mentioned earlier, were paid for by the Pride Foundation. So this guy, Paul Hardman, who was the head of the foundation, actually wanted to trademark them because he saw they were so popular. And, he was a bit of a Republican businessman, this Paul Hardman. Yes, there were Republicans running the Gay Pride Committee back then in 1978 and in San Francisco, if you can believe it. And so Gilbert went into this office of this lawyer, and this young lawyer at the corner of 18th Street and Castro. And he says, "Can you help me?" And there's Gilbert with his long hair, makeup, go-go boots, the little skirt, the whole thing. And he said, "I need some help. This guy at the foundation, I created this rainbow flag, and they're trying to trademark it." And the lawyer was kind of interested. He said, "Well, what is it? Is it that you want to trademark it? You think it's your trademark?" No, he says, "No." Gilbert said, "No, I want to give it to the world freely." And the guy was so impressed that he wanted to give it away. So he got involved in the case, and they actually, that they had letters back and forth to Paul Hardman, and they managed to stop Hardman from trademarking the flag. And so from that point on, it was in the public domain, freely given, free to be used, free to be abused. And I mentioned my friend Amber Hikes, who created the More Colors flag, because we did this exhibit of community pride flags at Stonewall in late May, and we did a live stream, and she was laughing. She said, "Charley," she said, a week after I created the rainbow flag with the black and brown stripe, I'm getting death threats, and here it is, 4 years later, and you can buy it in Target. You know what I mean? So I will also say that to everybody who becomes fascinated with the new rainbow flag or whatever new flag is out there. Trust me, it's a pure, wonderful symbol today, and you're going to see it on a bottle of beer within about 2 or 3 years. So
sure,
corporations will market these things. You can't stop them, and frankly, it helps to make it visible everywhere. It helps to know what companies and giant corporations are on our side. And I have to tell you this, the foundation, we are not anti-corporate. We're anti-bad corporations, and we're anti-bad politicians who push for bills that would restrict our rights. But, during those dark years of the Trump administration, it was really corporations who stopped some of these really bad voting laws, and these corporations that have stopped some of these anti-trans bathroom bills in Georgia and North Carolina. So, a corporation can be a force for good as well, if they're responsible, citizens. But,
sure.
So I don't think just bashing corporations is the answer. On the other hand, Gilbert used to just roll his eyes like when he saw the latest rainbow gadget, somebody. And at the foundation, I get these every year, and it's usually like in the winter leading up to June. It's some guy calls me and says, "I want to make some rainbow towels. Can you help me?" "Yeah, can I make rainbow towels?" "I can go ahead. You don't need us. It's in the public domain." As a matter of fact, Greg, just so you know, we don't sell flags. We don't sell rainbow anything. We don't believe in it. We think that would kind of compromise our brand as a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
We're not out to make money off of it. We're lucky enough to have a few grants from some organizations that support our mission, and our mission is simple. It's to preserve Gilbert's legacy and to promote his legacy. That's what we're here to do. We're here to teach people who he was and what he stood for.
Awesome. Talk about the use of the rainbow flag in different ways. Police departments all over this country, started in San Francisco, but all over this country now, for Pride Month, are lining their uniform patch with the rainbow colors. And they're using those patches to raise money for local LGBT nonprofits, but also to show some solidarity and support for the community. It's amazing. And those patches are immensely popular for trading.
I have noticed this, and through my friend Monica, who was in the military, I'm now a Facebook friend with a guy who designs these. I think they're beautiful. And I mean, that's exactly what Gilbert would have loved.
Yeah, I'm sure he would have. He would have loved them all. They're really great. Talk about the foundation's work internationally. Things are not great all over this world for LGBT folks.
No, they're not. And I got to tell you, when I talked to my board member, Aaron Stewart, he's in England, And he's like, oh, all this discussion in San Francisco, but all these community flags. He says, Charley, those are first world problems. We have people out there that have much more serious problems. And so Aaron arranged a collaboration between the Gilbert Baker Foundation and Report Out, the Sexual and Orientation and Gender Initiative. It's an organization in England that collects data and does polling in countries and interviews in countries where it's illegal to be gay, where people are really being jailed and beaten and sometimes killed for being their authentic self. So we're doing a project with them called Flag in the Map, and we're asking people to send a photograph of how they use the rainbow flag, especially in countries where it's difficult to be visible, and whether they're blurring out their face or not using their name. We're getting, we just got a picture in from Cuba, where they have this giant rainbow flag on the beach, to show in the face of a government that doesn't want them to show that. So we're doing this. We're going to collect these photographs into a book, and going to have a gallery show in London and New York next June to help make these people visible, to make their stories visible, to help other people. There's we were working. There's recently there was a first gay pride march at the Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya, and 200 people marched with 3 rainbow flags. They got about 1,000 feet, and they were arrested and beaten. The flags were taken and burned. A young woman in Ghana tried to open their first LGBTQ community center, and it was shut down within a day, and the rainbow flag was ripped down. And a lot of people, a story that finally got some press in Iran, in Tehran, a young man was kidnapped and beheaded by his own family in an honor killing, because he committed the crime of coming out of the closet. And his friends, to protest his death, they are taking rainbow flags and they are running down the streets of Tehran, ducking in and out of buildings, afraid of getting caught. But they're taking and flying that flag, and they're making it visible in the streets of Tehran in the memory of their friend who was killed, like I said, by his own family. So we have a lot of work to do, and we're really proud that the symbol Gilbert created has become the banner that people want to fly when they want to fight back against these murders, against these beatings, against these arrests, these imprisonments. These these are the kind of things that the foundation is getting more and more involved in, and that we are very passionate about. So please go to gilbertbaker.com, go look at the flag and the map, and participate. Tell your story, because you could end up in a book, and you end up in a gallery, and you might end up helping somebody, because when they see your story and see how brave you are, then maybe somebody who's living in a country that's not so lucky will have the bravery to step out of the closet as well and help fight for their rights.
It's inspiring work. The book is called The Rainbow Warrior, My Life in Color. Where can people find it to read more about the history of Gilbert Baker and the rainbow flag?
It's available from Chicago Review Press. It's also available on Amazon. It's just out in paperback. You can also go to gilbertbaker.com and just scroll down. You'll see the book there as well.
Fantastic. We will put a link to the book and to gilbertbaker.com on our website at outbeatnews.com. Just click on show notes at the top of the page. Charley, I think we could talk for hours and hours and hours about the work that you're doing. It's fantastic, and we look forward to supporting it and to catching up with you again soon.
Greg, thank you so much. I always enjoy talking to you, and I really thank you so much for helping us. We're a small foundation. We're lucky enough to have the big voice of Gilbert Baker behind us, but it really helps when people like you help promote the work we're doing. Thank you so much.
And a brilliant, beautiful voice he was. Matt Hoy, who's the lead man from the popular music group UB40, has dropped a new album, and he's allowed the Gilbert Baker Foundation to use the title track, Strong, as the theme song for the Flag and the Map project. Check it out.
Not now, not ever, ever, ever.
strong. Even though the road is long, no person has the right to say that you are wrong. We tend to look up to the sky. We place our hands together and ask for reasons why. Strength and unity to push us through the dark. Guidance and understanding and insight to our hearts. Not now, not ever will you take away our confidence. Not now, not ever will you make us feel irrelevant. Not now, not ever will you overlook the consequence. Not now, not ever will your judgment damage innocence. Could you make a change? Give rise and celebrate your life. Change the way you see the world today. Only you can shift the turning of the tide. We search for answers every day, exploring information and throwing it away. One day the truth will all be told. Some resolution to pull us from the cold. Not now, not ever will you take away our confidence. Not now, not ever will you make us feel irrelevant. Not now, not ever will you overlook the consequence. Not now, not ever will your judgment damage innocence. Not now, not ever will you take away our confidence. Not now, not ever will you make us feel